And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. Welcome to Benchley Night, except, as you know, not Benchley Night, Robert McCloskey Night. And what a night it is going to be, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, part one of the Doughnuts, possibly the most classic of the Homer Price stories, though I personally have other favorites. Pretty much the Doughnuts is taking its place in the pantheon of American shorts of Mark Twain like American short story. So now, for some reason, Faceplant decided that my personal Faceplant page couldn't show me doing this, so I'm over on the Hunter Studio page, and I think it's also visible on the YouTube channel, but I don't really understand how any of this works. But I'm glad you're here. I hope you're here. I see that there's 6 people watching, and that's a great thing. It's a great thing. And another great thing, ladies and gentlemen, another great thing is that each week we do this, and each week people are kind enough to support the charity of choice, and the Liberal Snowplowers. This week, we are supporting World Central Kitchen. So there's certainly plenty of sandwiches to be made out there. A celebratory quaff of a beverage to celebrate the conviction of a certain felon. I know some of my little friends are displaying upside down flags, but I'm not. I'm displaying a right side up flag myself. Anyway, glad to have you here, John Wilhelm. Glad to have you here, Kate Colors. That's the end of my political screed. We try to stay reasonably apolitical around here. Reasonably fine art, reasonably apolitical. And it is time to thank those people who were so kind to donate to World Central Kitchen. We raised about $400, ladies and gentlemen. We raised about $400, which is pretty darn good. All right, first off, an excellent painter and an excellent singer-songwriter who I had the pleasure to see the other day when I was in a terrible hurry. I forget exactly. Oh, it was when Facebook had kicked me off of Facebook for some reason. But I had to get stuff resolved in a hurry. I believe it is apolitical, John Wilhelm. I believe it is apolitical. Anyway, my good friend from New Hampshire, singer, songwriter, excellent artist, Mr. Tom Pirazzoli. Oh, he's peripatetic, ladies and gentlemen. He peripatets out of St. Albans, Vermont. And today, what he likes to do is get on the train, get on the Vermonter, just ride for a few stations, get off, go hiking, go get ice cream, and then ride the northbound Vermonter back up to St. Albans. Today, ladies and gentlemen, he was in Windsor, Vermont, saw the train come through, so he should be on his way home right now. Our good friend, Mr. Jim Frisk, out there in Omaha, Nebraska, keeping close track on what is political and what is apolitical. And I agree. I believe felony crimes are apolitical. Our good friend, Mr. John T. Wilhelm. Our good friend, Susan Fox. Thank you, Susan. She stands with Ukraine as Mr. Rick Gavatsky, momentarily not banned by Facebook. Thank you, Rick. Ms. Jane Shank. Thank you, Jane. Oh, the great Terry Hudson out there in the Balkans or somewhere. Oh, where is it now? Greece. She's in Greece on a boat. She's on a boat in Greece. Traveling around, sending great pictures back. Sending a lot of pictures of cats, and that always is appropriate, ladies and gentlemen. Cats are apolitical. They just want snacks. That's all they want. Ms. Terry Hudson. Now, I know that looking at what Faceplant said like 12 people donated, but they only gave me like 10 names. So to Nani Moose, thank you, Nani Moose. To our good friend Carol burning in at the last moment, she texted me and said, are you raising money for World Central Kitchen? And I said, we are indeed, Carol Burning. And she said, then I'm in. Thank you, Carol Burning. Ms. Margaret Papa or Margaret Papa. Tell me how to pronounce your name, Margaret. I'll get it right one year. Thank you, Margaret. Out there. And I found today, I was cleaning up, and I found a beautiful card she sent me of a painting she did of the oldest operating gas station and general store in the state of Arkansas. Excellent friend, excellent human being, Ms. Catherine Fisher. Out there in Fulton, Missouri, overseeing the sheep. She is their shepherd, and they shall not want. Ms. Carol Fulkerson. And out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, he and his mom sent me a box of books this week. And I got the books on Friday, and they're in the back of the car. And I'm going to get them out of the back of the car in the next couple of days. And we will see what those books are. But there's one really remarkable thing about him. He's very, 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 very tall. And he loves a very, very, very small little dog, just as he loves the sports teams of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and just as he loves his wonderful wife, Elise. My very tall cousin, Mr. Nat Hunter. Thank you, Nat. All right. So on with part one of the Doughnuts. Because the Homer Price stories are longer than the Benchley stories. And so we have to just find a good place to cliffhanger stories. The Doughnuts. Now, how many people here, ladies and gentlemen, raise your hands. How many people here do or do not know the story of the Doughnuts? If you do not know the story of the Doughnuts, comment. I can probably only see some of the comments because I don't understand how to see all the comments, but I can see comments so far from John Wilhelm, Kate Colors, E. Inga Stroh, John Wilhelm again, Carly Hardy, and Jane E. Shank from Wayland, Iowa. Out there in Iowa. I love Iowa. I think Iowa is a beautiful, beautiful state. The driftless area, fantastic. The whole thing is beautiful. America is a very beautiful country. Anyway, John Wilhelm does not know the Doughnuts. Kate Collis doesn't know the Doughnuts. Oh my goodness. It's a very gentle satire about America, land of plenty and land of mechanical improvements. You will find out. Oh, this is so good. I'm so glad. Great. The Doughnuts. One Friday night in November, Homer overheard his mother talking on the telephone to Aunt Agnes over in Centerburg. I'll stop by with the car in about half an hour and we can go to the meeting together, she said, because tonight was the night the Ladies' Club was meeting to discuss plans for a box social and to knit and sew for the Red Cross. I think I'll come along and keep Uncle Ulysses company while you and Aunt Agnes are at the meeting, said Homer. So, after Homer had combed his hair and his mother had looked to see if she had her knitting instructions and the right size needles, they started for town. Homer's Uncle Ulysses and Aunt Agnes have a very up-and-coming lunch counter over here in Centerburg, just across from the courthouse on the town square. Uncle Ulysses is a man with advanced ideas and a weakness for labor-saving devices. He has equipped the lunchroom with automatic toasters, automatic coffee maker, automatic dishwasher, and an automatic donut maker. All just the latest thing in labor-saving devices. Aunt Agnes will throw up her hands and sigh every time Uncle Ulysses buys a new labor-saving device. Sometimes she becomes unkindly disposed toward him for days and days. She was of the opinion that Uncle Ulysses just frittered away his spare time over at the barber shop with the sheriff and the boys. So what was the good of a labor-saving device that gave you more time to fritter? When Homer and his mother got to Centerburg, they stopped at the lunchroom, and after Aunt Agnes had come out and said, "My, how that boy does grow," which was what she always said, she went off with Homer's mother in the car. Homer went into the lunchroom and said, "Howdy, Uncle Ulysses." "Oh, hello, Homer, you're just in time," said Uncle Ulysses. "I've been going over this automatic donut machine, oiling the machinery, cleaning the works. Wonderful thing, these labor-saving devices." "Yep," agreed Homer, and he picked up a cloth and he started polishing the metal trimmings while Uncle Ulysses tinkered with the inside workings. "Oh, woof," sighed Uncle Ulysses, and then said, "Look here, Homer, you got a mechanical mind. See if you can find where these two pieces fit in. I'm going across the barber shop because there's something I got to talk to the sheriff about. There won't be much business here until the double feature is over, and I'll be back before then." Then, as Uncle Ulysses went out the door, he said, "Oh, Homer, after you get the pieces in place, would you mind mixing up a batch of donut batter and putting it in the machine? You could turn the switch and make a few donuts to have on hand for the crowd after the movie, if you don't mind." Carol hasn't heard this one either? Oh, excellent, excellent. "Okay," said Homer, "I'll take care of everything." Now, here's the picture, ladies and gentlemen. Uncle Ulysses, working on the machine, and Homer helping out in the background. A few minutes later, a customer came in and said, "Good evening, Bud." Homer looked up from putting the last piece in the donut machine and he said, "Good evening, sir. What can I do for you?" "Well, young feller, I'd like a cup of coffee and some donuts," said the customer. "Oh, I'm sorry, mister. We won't have any donuts for about half an hour until I can mix some dough and start this machine. I could give you some very fine sugar rolls instead." "Well, Bud, I ain't in no real hurry, so I'll just have a cup of coffee and wait around a bit for the donuts. Fresh donuts are always worth waiting for, is what I always say." "Okay," said Homer, and he drew a cup of coffee from Uncle Ulysses' super automatic coffee machine. "Nice place you got here," said the customer. "Oh, yes," replied Homer. "This is a very up-and-coming lunchroom with all the latest improvements." "Yes," said the stranger. "Must be a good business. I'm in business, too. I'm a traveling man in outdoor advertising. I'm a sandwich man. Mr. Gabby's my name." "Well, my name is Homer. Good to meet you, Mr. Gabby. Must be a fine profession, traveling and advertising sandwiches." "Oh, no," said Mr. Gabby. "I don't advertise sandwiches. I just wear any kind of old ad, one side on one front and one side on the behind. This way." I'm going to read that again. I didn't read that sentence very well. "Oh, no," said Mr. Gabby. "I don't advertise sandwiches. I just wear any kind of an ad, one sign on one front and one sign on behind. This way, like a sandwich. You know what I mean?" "Oh, I see. Well, that must be fun. You travel too?" asked Homer as he got out the flour and the baking powder. Yeah, I ride the rods between jobs on freight trains. You know what I mean? Yeah, but isn't that dangerous? Asked Homer. Of course, there's a certain amount of risk, but you take any method of travel these days, it's all dangerous. You know what I mean? Now, you take airplanes, for instance. Just then, a large, shiny black car stopped in front of the lunchroom, and a chauffeur helped a lady out of the rear door. They both came inside, and the lady smiled at Homer and said, Oh, we've stopped for a light snack. Some donuts and coffee would be simply marvelous. Then Homer said, I'm sorry, ma'am, but the donuts won't be ready until I make this batter and start Uncle Ulysses' donut machine. Well, now, aren't you a clever young man to know how to make donuts? Well, blushed Homer, I've never really done it before, but I've got a recipe to follow. Now, young man, you simply must allow me to help. You know, I haven't made donuts for years, but I know the best recipe for donuts. It is marvelous, and we really must use it. Now, I'm going to pause for a moment here for two things. One, I see my brother Will has joined us. Good to see you, Will. Secondly, I want to point out how the lunchroom is a place he's setting up. Robert McCloskey is setting this up to show the lack of class distinctions. Both the wealthy woman and the feller who rides freight trains between sandwich board advertising jobs have come to the diner for donuts. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why we are preserving the Miss Bellows Falls Diner. It is a place where class distinctions are erased, and we are all equal in our love for coffee and donuts. All right. Oh, and thirdly, Will, my brother will remember. Actually, in the book, I keep saying recipe because that is what we say these days. But Ms. Enders, the wealthy woman, it is written that she's saying receipt. And we'll remember that our great Aunt Mary used to always say that she had an excellent receipt for pineapple upside down cake. Or she was not a good cook, ladies and gentlemen. It may have been a good receipt, but it lost a little something in its delivery. Anyway, well, blushed Homer, I've never really done it before, but I've got a recipe to follow. I've got a receipt to follow. Now, young man, you simply must allow me to help. You know, I haven't made donuts for years, but I know the best receipt for donuts. It is marvelous, and we really must use it. But, ma'am, said Homer, now you just wait until you taste these donuts, said the lady. Do you have an apron, she asked, and she took off her fur coat. And here's a picture, ladies and gentlemen. Here's a picture. There she is making the donuts. And Homer in the background looking doubtful. And the chauffeur looking very entertained and expectant. It's wonderful. Oh, and look at all the jewelry that she's got. See, class lines being erased, ladies and gentlemen. She's taken off her jewelry and she's making donuts. Okay. Now, just you wait till you taste these donuts, said the lady. Do you have an apron, she asked, and she took off her fur coat and her rings and her jewelry, and she rolled up her sleeves. Charles, she said to the chauffeur, hand me that baking powder. That's right, and young man, we'll need some nutmeg. So Homer and the chauffeur stood by and handed things and cracked the eggs while the lady mixed and stirred. Mr. Gabby sat on his stool, sipped his coffee, and looked on with great interest. There, said the lady when all the ingredients were mixed. Just wait till you taste these donuts. It looks like an awful lot of batter, said Homer, as he stood on a chair and poured it into the donut machine with the help of the chauffeur. It's about it's about 10 times as much as Uncle Ulysses ever makes. But wait till you taste them, said the lady with an eager look and a smile. Well, Homer got down from the chair and he pushed a button on the machine marked Start. Rings of batter started dropping into the hot fat. After a ring of batter was cooked on one side, an automatic gadget turned it over and the other side would cook. Then another automatic gadget gave the donut a little push and it rolled neatly down a little chute, all ready to eat. Here, young man, you must have the first one. Now, isn't that just too delicious? Isn't it simply marvelous? Yes, ma'am, it's very good, replied Homer as the lady handed donuts to Charles and to Mr. Gabby and asked if they didn't think they were simply divine donuts. It's an old family receipt, said the lady with pride. Homer poured some coffee for the lady and her chauffeur and for Mr. Gabby and a glass of milk for himself. Then they all sat down at the lunch counter to enjoy another few donuts apiece. Oh, I'm so glad you enjoy my donuts, said the lady. But now, Charles, we really must be going. If you'll just take this apron, Homer, and put 24 donuts in a bag to take along, we'll be on our way. And Charles, don't forget to pay the young man. She rolled down her sleeves and put on her jewelry. Then Charles managed to get her into her big fur coat. Oh, good night, young man. I haven't had so much fun in years. I really haven't, said the lady. She went out the door and into the shiny black car. Those sure are good donuts, said Mr. Gabby as the car moved off. You bet, said Homer. Then he and Mr. Gabby stood and watched the automatic donut machine make donuts. After a few dozen more had rolled down the little chute, Homer said, well, I guess that's about enough donuts to sell to the after theater customers. I better turn the machine off for a while. Homer pushed the button marked Stop, and there was a little click. But nothing else happened. The rings of batter just kept right on dropping into the hot fat, and an automatic gadget kept right on turning them over, and another automatic gadget kept right on giving them a little push, and the donuts kept right on rolling down the little chute, all ready to eat. Well, that's funny, said Homer. I'm sure that's the right button. He pushed it again, but the automatic donut machine kept right on making donuts. Well, I guess I must have put on one of those pieces backwards, said Homer. Well, then maybe it'll stop if you push the button marked Start, said Mr. Gabby. Homer did, and the donuts still kept rolling down the little chute just as regular as clockwork. Well, I guess we could sell a few more donuts, said Homer. But I'd better telephone Uncle Ulysses over at the barber shop. Homer gave the number, and while he waited for someone to answer, he counted 37 donuts roll down the little chute. Finally, someone answered. Hello, this is the the barber shop. Oh, hello, Sheriff. This is Homer. Could I speak to Uncle Ulysses? And that's where we're going to end this tonight, ladies and gentlemen. That's where we're going to end this tonight, with the little machine, the little gadget dropping the ring of donut mixture into the hot fat, and the little gadget flipping it over, and then the other little gadget pushing it down the chute, just as regular as a clock can tick. We'll see you next week, ladies and gentlemen, right here, 7:45 p.m. for the denouement of the donuts. You take good care. Enjoy the beautiful summer. Bye-bye.